They took everything from me. I can't let them hurt someone else. Rowan Ellison's voice shattered in the middle of Dr. Sienna Carver's office, broken, trembling, finally free. Her husband Jonah sat frozen beside her, watching the woman he thought he knew completely unravel in front of him. Because 3 days ago, he'd walked into this same office for marriage counseling and saw something that stopped his heart cold. A photo on the wall. Survivors of the Clearwater Ridge disaster. A teenage girl wrapped in a Red Cross blanket, face smeared with ash, eyes wide with pure terror. It was Rowan. But Jonah had never heard of Clearwater Ridge, never heard of any tragedy, never seen that look of horror on his wife's face, not even in her worst nightmares. "Why is my wife's photo among survivors of a tragedy?" he'd asked. Dr. Carver had gone ghost white. And in that moment, Jonah realized the woman he'd been married to for 7 years had been living under a name that wasn't entirely hers, running from a past she swore she'd buried forever. Rowan hadn't just survived a disaster, she'd witnessed a crime. An explosion that killed 12 people, including her parents, wasn't an accident. It was orchestrated, planned, covered up. And the men who lit the match, they saw her face that night, and she saw theirs. For 15 years, Rowan stayed silent, stayed hidden, stayed safe. Until a black SUV parked outside their New York apartment. Until an unmarked letter arrived. Stop digging. Let Clearwater Ridge rest. Until her husband accidentally uncovered the one thing she prayed would never surface. Now Rowan sat trembling, staring at the photo of the girl she used to be, whispering the words that would change everything. I can't stay silent anymore. Because sometimes God doesn't let you outrun your past. Sometimes He brings it back so you can finally face it and set the truth free. Hey family, welcome back. If you've been here before, thank you, truly. Your presence means more than you know. And if this is your first time, I want you to breathe for a moment. Because you didn't land here by accident. You're here because something in this story is meant for you. This one is not just a story, it's a mirror. It's for anyone who's ever carried a secret too heavy for their chest. For anyone who learned to smile so the world wouldn't see the trembling underneath. For anyone who grew up telling themselves, if I stay quiet, maybe the pain will stay quiet too. Rowan tried that for 15 years. But God has a way of bringing buried things to the light, not to destroy us, but to free us. And maybe you're here because a part of you is tired of running too. So if something in this touches you, if you feel your heart tug or your spirit whisper, don't scroll, stay, then subscribe. Not for me, but so you don't forget that healing often begins exactly at the moment you feel least prepared for it. All right, family, let's begin. 3 days earlier, a cold New York morning, February wind cutting through the streets like broken glass. Jonah Ellison sat in Dr. Sienna Carver's waiting room, knee bouncing, palms sweating. Marriage counseling. That's what it had come to. 7 years together, and suddenly Rowan felt like a stranger, distant, guarded, waking up screaming from nightmares she wouldn't talk about. "Mr. Ellison?" Dr. Carver's voice was warm, professional. He stood, followed her into the office, and that's when he saw it. The wall behind her desk, framed photos, certificates, and in the corner, in loving memory, Clearwater Ridge Disaster Survivors, 2009. 43 faces. His eyes landed on one. Third row, a teenage girl, Red Cross blanket, ash-smeared face, eyes wide with absolute terror. Rowan. His Rowan. Why is my wife's photo among survivors of a tragedy? Dr. Carver froze. Her face went white. Jonah, you need to sit down. Jonah went home that night and watched his wife like she was a stranger. The way she startled when the smoke alarm beeped during dinner. the nightmares that made her jolt awake at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, gasping like she was drowning. How she'd leave the room whenever news of a fire or explosion played on TV. He'd always called them quirks. Now they felt like scars. That night he asked softly, "Rowan, can we talk about your childhood?" She went ghost pale. Her coffee cup trembled in her hand. "I don't want to talk about it." 4 words. A door slammed shut. Jonah lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, realizing the painful truth. He loved a woman who was terrified of her own past. The next morning he returned to Dr. Carver's office, alone. Because silence in marriage doesn't protect love, it suffocates it. Sometimes the hardest stories to hear are the ones God placed in our path for a reason. If this one's stirring something in your spirit, a memory, a truth you've been running from, don't scroll past it. Subscribe, not because I asked, but because your soul recognized something here. And maybe, just maybe, you're meant to see how this ends. Jonah returned to Dr. Carver's office the next morning, alone. "Tell me everything." Dr. Carver folded her hands, exhaled slowly. Rowan Hale, born in Clearwater Ridge, Montana, 14 years old when it happened. Jonah's chest tightened. The Clearwater Ridge disaster, June 2009, a gas explosion destroyed 3 homes, 12 people died. She paused, letting the weight settle. Rowan's parents were 2 of them. She was the only survivor from her house. Jonah's vision blurred. The nightmares, the way she flinched at fireworks, her refusal to talk about her childhood. It all made sense now. She spent a year in therapy with me before her aunt took her to New York. Jonah nodded, throat tight. So she buried it, started over. Dr. Carver's face darkened. "Jonah, the explosion wasn't accidental." The room tilted. "What?" "Your wife didn't just survive a tragedy, she survived a crime, one powerful people wanted forgotten." That night, Jonah couldn't sleep. He sat at his laptop in the dark, the glow lighting his face as he typed, "Clearwater Ridge Disaster 2009. Page after page, news articles, forum threads, blogs that hadn't been updated in a decade. And then he found it. The inconsistencies. A fire marshal's report that listed the blast radius too small for a natural gas leak. A neighbor's interview, scrubbed from most sites, describing screams before the explosion, not after. Official records missing, names redacted, investigators reassigned. His hands went cold. Then he saw it, buried in an archived local paper. A teenage girl survived. If she ever speaks, careers will end. Jonah's stomach dropped. Rowan hadn't just lost her parents. She'd seen something. Behind him, the bedroom door creaked open. Rowan stood in the hallway, eyes wide, trembling. She'd been watching him, and the fear in her gaze, God, it was the same terror from that photo. "Jonah," she whispered, "please stop digging." He closed the laptop, crossed the room, held her hands. They were ice cold. "Rowan, what's going on?" Her voice cracked. "Someone's been watching our apartment." His blood went cold. "What?" She nodded toward the window. Jonah pulled back the blinds. A black SUV, parked across the street, engine running. A man in the driver's seat, staring directly up at their window. Not random, not accidental. Jonah's heart hammered. "How long?" 3 days. The next morning, an envelope slid under their door. No stamp, no return address. Rowan opened it with shaking hands. "Stop digging. Let Clearwater Ridge rest." She collapsed into Jonah's arms, really collapsed, sobbing for the first time in their entire marriage. "I thought if I stayed quiet," she gasped, "they'd forget about me." Jonah held her tighter. Her silence was never about hiding from him. It was about surviving. How many of us carry secrets we think will destroy us if spoken? Rowan believed silence would keep her safe. But God doesn't call us to hide. He calls us to heal. If this story is breaking something open in you, stay. Subscribe, because the truth she's about to speak might be the permission you need to speak yours. Jonah took Rowan back to Dr. Carver's office the next day. This time, the truth came out whole. Your father-in-law discovered something, Dr. Carver said quietly. Pipeline safety funds, millions in forged inspection reports, officials taking bribes to look the other way. Jonah's chest tightened. He was going to expose it all, every name, every payoff. Rowan's voice broke through, barely a whisper. They came the night before he was supposed to testify. Dr. Carver nodded. Rowan saw them. 2 men, planting the detonators in the basement. Jonah felt like he'd been punched. They saw her face. She saw theirs. Rowan wasn't running from grief. She was running from men who'd already killed 12 people to keep their secret. And now, 15 years later, they knew she was still breathing. Jonah reached for his wife's hand. The weight she'd carried alone all these years, it was crushing. That night, in their apartment, the dam finally broke. Rowan sat on the edge of their bed, Jonah beside her, and let the memories claw their way out. "My dad, he pushed me under the kitchen table," her voice cracked. "Mom covered me with her body." Tears streamed down her face. "Then everything exploded, fire everywhere, the ceiling caving in." Jonah pulled her close. She didn't resist this time. "I crawled out, saw 2 men running, silhouettes against the flames." She sobbed into his chest. "They looked back at me, just for a second, but I saw their faces." Her whole body shook. "I was 14, Jonah, 14 and covered in my parents' blood." He held her tighter, his own tears falling. For 15 years, she'd buried this alone. But tonight, she wasn't a victim anymore. She was a witness. And for the first time, she wasn't carrying it alone. Back home, Jonah paced their living room. "We go to the FBI. We tell them everything." "No," Rowan's voice cracked. "You don't understand what these people are capable of." "I understand they murdered your parents." The words hung heavy between them. Dr. Carver had explained the options: cold case units, investigative journalists, legal protection. But every path forward felt like walking into fire. Jonah wanted justice. Rowan wanted to survive. For 3 days, their apartment felt like a prison. Rowan barely ate, barely spoke. Then she saw the news. Another pipeline explosion, different state, same company. A mother, 2 children, gone. Rowan's hands started shaking, but this time, something else flickered in her eyes. Not fear, fury. She turned to Jonah, tears streaming down her face. "They took everything from me. I can't let them hurt someone else." Jonah pulled her close. His wife had finally made her choice. This is the moment everything changes. When you decide your pain has a purpose, when silence becomes courage. If Rowan's choice is convicting your heart right now, if you're realizing you have a truth that needs to be told, then you're exactly who needs to be here. Subscribe, not for entertainment, for transformation. The next morning, Rowan walked back into Dr. Carver's office, not as a patient this time, as a witness. She sat in that same chair where she'd once hidden her truth, and this time she spoke every word of it. The names, the faces, the basement, the detonators, everything. Dr. Carver made the call to federal authorities while Rowan was still speaking. Jonah sat beside her the entire time, hand locked in hers, anchor and witness both. When it was over, Rowan stood and walked to the wall. That photo, The girl wrapped in the Red Cross blanket, ash-smeared a face, eyes wide with terror. She stared at it for a long time. But now she didn't see tragedy. She saw proof. Proof she survived, proof she fought back, proof the truth was finally coming. Jonah stepped beside her. "Ready?" She nodded, and together they walked out, no longer running from the past, but ready to face it.